is one of the very special graces of life that each of us can rely upon his own strength to do so many things for ourselves and for others. The quiet sense of assurance and independence is so strengthening to the heart and to the spirit. Sometimes our experience of self-confidence is so overwhelming that we forget the limitations by which our lives are surrounded. There are so many things of which we are heirs that are not the result of any act of our own, any wisdom which we have distilled, any kind of knowledge which has been vouchsafed to our minds. Always we are surrounded by so much more than what we are. So much more wisdom, so much more understanding, so much more knowledge, so much more caring, so much more love, so much more mercy, that as we remember this in the quietness of this place, in the midst of the worshipers of God, we find new tongues of praise to give to Thee, O God, for Thy brooding care, beyond which, despite arrogance and pride and independence and self-confidence, we cannot drift. Gather then unto Thyself, O God, these spirits of ours, that they may come to themselves in Thee. And this will suffice. This will suffice even us, O God, God of our spirits. I'm reading a contemporary poem as a picture, a feeling, tone that I would like to have you sense as we think together about two implications from this, what is perhaps the greatest poem of the 19th century, Goethe's Faust. A sparrow who lived in the eaves of a church and whose ideas were somewhat erratic met a pigeon one day from a church o'er the way whose opinions were very dogmatic. They stopped in their search for a midday repast, and in hunting they both were astute. And I hate to relate, they engaged in debate that led to a frightful dispute. Quoth the pigeon, I hold the theological views considered both learned and wise. So without more delay, I will show you today the only straight road to the skies. Said the sparrow, your effort would be unrepaid, for I follow a different road, and it causes me grief to hear your belief in such a ridiculous code. Then without more ado, I'm sorry to say, they engaged in a battle most gory, till each was bereft of his sense and his breath, and the curtain here falls on their story. Now, a strange little bird from a blossoming tree had witnessed the scene with surprise. Then, with unfettered wing and a heart that could sing, he took the straight road to the skies. We have been thinking for some days now about the meaning and the significance of commitment as a discipline of the spirit. Today we are thinking about the bearing of certain of the insights that we have explored together on this very moving and significant expression of the creative genius of man's mind. Faust, Goethe's Faust. The scene is in somewhat like the scene at the beginning of the book of Job. There is the conclave, which is called by the creator of the universe, by God. And in Faust, the heavenly chorus, the angels are singing their praises to God because he is God and the world is good and life is good and whole and complete. But there is one person present, and this is very interesting to me. This person, the Prince of Darkness, Mephistopheles. It's an interesting sounding name, isn't it? Well, anyway. Mephistopheles is the Prince of Darkness, but he is a part of the conclave. This is very interesting. He is a member of the conclave in good standing. Just as in the prologue to Job, Satan is one of the members of the family. The principle of dualism that perhaps has done so much damage in some of its aspects to the religious thought and the religious experience structured by the religious thought of mankind is not present here. So, Mephistopheles says, I won't join in this chorus because I'm too honest. I'm a realist. I know that this life isn't quite like these angels are saying it. They're out of touch with reality. So then he has a conversation with God. God says, is what you're saying really true? Do you think that creation is bad, that life is out of joint in some of its aspects? Have you thought about Faust? Have you reviewed him? Have you encountered him? Have you taken him into account? And so they strike a bargain. This tendency to bargain is so universal. And in this instance, it seems cosmic. At any rate, they strike a bargain. You can do anything to Faust that you wish, but you cannot take his life. And that's all Mephistopheles wants. He's sure he can handle the rest. Then the scene changes, and Faust is seated in his library, and he's come to the end of his rope. He has exhausted all knowledge. As it seems to him, he has explored everything. He is universally admired because through his alchemy or through his medicine and through his insights, he's been able to administer to human need, and the response of the healed body is so overwhelming that the mind bows before the man who is able to bring such healing into being and experience. So, but this does not satisfy him. He says that he has tried all of these things. Let me read what he says. He's tried all of these things, but everything fails me, everything. These instruments, do they not all mock me? Lathe, cylinder, and ring, and cog, and wheel. In vain I call on you for aid, you keys of science. I stand before the guarded door of nature, but it bids defiance to latch or ward. Mysterious in the blaze of day, nature pursues her tranquil way. The veil she wears, if hand profane should seek to raise, it seeks in vain. Go, wondrous creature, mount where science guides. Instruct the planets in which orbs to run, state the tides, and regulate the sun. Then drop into thyself and be a fool. This is what he discovered. So he says, since I have exhausted all of the meaning of life, and I come back to the starting place every time. The living of life is no good. I shall now apply my knowledge to self-destruction. He lifts the goblet of poison to drink. And then, in the church, hard by his studio and laboratory, he hears a choir singing Easter hymns. And these hymns, one of the hymns reminds him of the early religious experiences of his childhood. And as he is carried back into that kind of experience, he is saved from self-destruction. I cannot refrain from commenting as I go along. I don't want to do this too much, but what a wonderfully tragic thing it is, almost criminal, I think, in my judgment at any rate, if those who have children deny their children the experiences as they grow up of the distilled religious experience and wisdom of the race, whatever may be the matured judgment of the parent with reference to whether or not there's any meaning in this religion or not. No parent has the right to make that kind of choice for his child. For the child must have as his heritage the cumulative wisdom of the race. And this moment in the life of Faust underscores the meaning of what I'm saying. So he goes on. The scene changes again, and Mephistopheles enters, and he says, all the things that you want, I can give you if you will enter into a little bargain with me. If you will give your soul to me so that you will be my servant and my slave when you die after death. I will be your servant and your slave while you're alive. Well, Faust is sophisticated. The only life he knows, he says, is the life that we have now. And tomorrow, beyond the grave, that may be a fiction anyway. When a man dies, he's dead, and so I will promise anything for after death, because death is something that happens to life. And if death is something that happens to life, then death ends life. So, he signed up. And now the transformation takes place. He loses his old age. He loses his disillusionment. He becomes young and full of vigor and vitality, enthusiasm, good looks, money, I suppose. He has everything. And he and Mephistopheles go out to experience life, to open up the bowels of sensation until they can contain all of the meaning of existence. This is what he thinks. And they meet at a friend's house, Martha's house, Marguerite, who represents innocence and wholeness, the essence of Catholic piety and devotion, tender, gentle. And when she meets this ambulating essence of sophistication, she just capitulates. There's anything she can do. He gives her jewelry. He gives her all kinds of things that she did not dream that anybody possessed. Not only that she would ever possess them, and he sweeps her off her feet and takes her into the depths of degradation and shame, always holding before her the glittering promise of a kind of fulfillment which identification with him would give to her, knowing all the time that more and more as he explores more deeply and more deeply into the experience of sensation, that this cannot meet an ultimate hunger which he has. And then he leaves her, skinned and cast down like a sheep without a shepherd. And her brother, Valentine, wishes to wreak his vengeance upon a man who has destroyed his sister. So Faust encounters him in a duel and kills him. Now he adds this sense of shame which he has, adds to that murder. And there's a stirring in him, but he still cannot recognize it fully. And then he and Mephistopheles have a rendezvous at the place where the 1st of May every year the Prince of Darkness has his magic festival. And here you can see the pristine fulfillment of all the meaning of the lesser levels of existence, blown up so that they seem to be all that existence holds. And in the midst of this festivity, Faust sees the face of Marguerite, and then he is thrown into the arms of a wrestle with what remains of his conscience, and he begs Mephisto to take him back to see Marguerite, and they go to visit her in her cell, and she's so deranged that she hardly recognizes him. She is now condemned to death because she's taken the life of her baby, and Faust begs her to go with him, but go where? She's been with him everywhere. And just at that moment, the face of Mephistopheles appears, and then Marguerite dies, asking forgiveness of heaven, and the chorus says she's saved. 30 years separate part 1 from part 2, and in part 2, Faust also finds his redemption. Now that's the story in bold, audacious outline. Now let's look a little. The fundamental question that has bearing on my concern is, are the contradictions of life final? This is the heart of the issue in my mind. That is to say, if the contradictions of life are final, are ultimate, if there is an ultimate division that marks the boundary of goodness and the boundary of evil, then it is possible for an individual to make as his absolute commitment his life, his thought, his everything to evil. And it will follow as a series of creative or less creative derivatives from this central commitment to evil. All of the developments of significance and meaning that this kind of commitment can give. In other words, a man once committed to evil, if the ultimate contradiction holds, you see, mark what I'm saying. If the ultimate contradiction holds, then a man who thus commits himself to evil will do the evil with the kind of utter abandonment and abiding enthusiasm, with decreasing sense of any awareness of the fact that the evil is evil. It represents a final choice that the individual makes. But if the contradictions in life are not final, are not ultimate, then it would follow that a man cannot make a total and fundamental and complete commitment to evil. It seems in the development of this poem that Faust made his fundamental commitment to the power of darkness, and then in the 30-year interval between the writing of part 1 and part 2, Goethe comes to a new insight that this cannot be so, because Faust has to be redeemed. And why must Faust be redeemed? Because the creator of life, the creator of existence, the creator of Faust is himself righteous. And whatever there is in all the annals of existence that can hold out finally against God must be regarded as being equal to God. Therefore, yielding, surrendering, more and more, exploring all possibilities of wandering may be done in human experience, not of necessity, but may be done. But at long last, nothing can hold out against God. I wonder if you believe that. I wonder. Now it suggests one other little footnote, because I've said the heart of what I want to say. One little footnote, and that is that we must not be deceived by the fact that what we experience in time and space is limited to time and space. Now, what do I mean by this? That life as we live it, life as we experience it as sentient creatures, cannot quite be measured in terms of the time interval that extends from the date of our birth to the time of our dying. That there is a dimension of life that transcends the time interval of a person's living. So that every experience of man, even the experiences of the mind or the experiences of the senses or the experiences of the spirit, to make these fictitious divisions of personality, is contained in that which transcends the experience. Now, this has very important bearing on death, as I think of it. One of the reasons why all religions that are good religions, whatever may be the content of the creed, all religions that are good religions ultimately know that they cannot address themselves to the ultimate demands of the human spirit unless they deal in some way with the question of death. Because what death says always, that there is no future. This is what death means, the cessation of future. Now, therefore, any religion that has to do with the meaning of life and the meaning of man's experience has to make that hurdle. It has to answer the question for man. Is there any way by which the future may be guaranteed to me? So all the doctrines which have to do with eternal life and salvation ultimately speak to this point and to this issue. Now, what do they say essentially? That death is episodic. That death is an event in the experience of a living person. But the life is not measured by the time interval that death marks. So, in the imagery which they give about heaven, about hell, all these images, these insights have to do with the continuation of a man's life, and death is just one of the incidents in connection with this. Now, if that is true, then it says, you see, that there is a dimension of the human spirit that stands outside of all of the events through which the individual life may be passing. Now, we see this in many ways, and I'll hurry through this. We see this in many ways. There is no event which you ever perform that quite contains all that you mean or that you are. If I ask you very quickly now, select one incident in your life that represents you completely, which one would you select? You would select one, and before the words died, you would say, oh no, but there's some part of me that's left out. So you'll come with another one. Now, always you are an observer of yourself as a participant in what you're doing. This dual dimension always. You the observer, you the participant. Now, there is a sense in which you the observer is never involved in whatever may be the events of your life, and death is one of these. And I think that's why a man may be very aware of the fact that he is dying right up to the end, because some aspect, some crucial, transcending, time-binding aspect of his personality is not involved in this. And I think this is the God in him. And the degree to which a man is aware of this, he knows that the contradictions of life, however terrifying and overwhelming, are never final. Beyond the tempest and the struggle, there is a movement of the Creator brooding over all the stuff of man's experience, informing it more and more and more of the quality of itself. Heir of the kingdom neath the skies, often he falls, yet falls to rise, stumbling, bleeding, beaten back, holding still to the upward track, playing his part in creation's plan, God-like in image. This is man. This is man. This is man. And I thank God with all the heart that I can get that it is so. Take the weak word, the great inadequacy of mind, fill them with thy glory, O God, that the truth may live, even though error may abound. Walk beside us as we separate, and leave us not alone to the strength of our own mind.